Hello, everyone, and happy International Women's Day. I'm Jamie Ramacati, Head of Content for Student Events at Times Higher Education, and I am very excited to be hosting today's session focused on women in tech. We have an incredible panel of women with us today to share their experiences working in the tech industry and their advice for young women. The theme of International Women's Day this year is Break the Bias, encouraging us all to imagine a world that is free of bias, stereotypes, and discrimination, and to think of ways that we can break the bias in our communities, workplaces, and schools. Every year, International Women's Day gives us an opportunity to reinforce the fact that everyone has a role to play in creating a more gender-balanced world. Today's discussion will be focused on women in tech, and we'll be talking about how we can all do more to support women in tech and provide more opportunities for women to excel in this male-dominated industry. According to the Global Gender Gap Report from the World Economic Forum, gender gaps are more likely in sectors that require disruptive technical skills. The research shows that, for example, in cloud computing, women make up just 14% of the workforce. In engineering, 20%, and in data and AI, 32%. The COVID-19 crisis has also accelerated automation and digitization, speeding up labor market disruption. The data shared in the Global Gender Gap Report points to significant challenges for gender parity in the future of jobs. It's certainly not all bad news, though, and although the global outlook is definitely something to take note of, it's also important to recognize the ways that organizations are making changes to support women in the workplace, to provide opportunities for training and skills development, and creating space for women to excel. We hope that today's session will highlight some of these opportunities and help us all to acknowledge the challenges and also celebrate the successes of women in tech. With all of that context in mind, I'd love to jump right into the discussion with our panel. If you have questions for our panelists, please submit them using the Q&A function, and we'll try to get to some of them throughout the discussion. I'm delighted to be joined by Noah, Charlotte, and Ramin, and I would love to begin by asking you each to briefly introduce yourselves and tell us in a few words about your career and your current role. Noah, we'll begin with you.
Hi, Jamie. Thanks for having us. Hello everyone. My name is Noah Havaselet. I'm 38 years old, and I'm also a mom of two, and I live in London. I've been working in Google for the past 11 years, and within my current role, I'm the head of our Startups Accelerator program in Europe. We are supporting startups and equipping them with the right resource, knowledge, and technology to actually succeed. I'm also working with communities of developers across Europe to actually support them with training, networking opportunities, and making sure that they're part of a community growing together. I'm originated from Israel, and back then when I was actually at high school, I was one out of three female students majoring in computer science. So actually, I'm very conscious about the gender gap that we had, and Jamie, that you mentioned before, and I'm constantly trying to actually address it and support more women to participate in the tech industry. We have few programs that we set up in Google, but also beyond just my core role.
Wonderful. Thanks for joining us today, Noah. Charlotte, we'll turn to you next. Oh, Charlotte, unmute your microphone.
Okay.
Wonderful.
Can you hear me
Thanks.
now? Okay.
Yes.
Okay. Hi, everybody. I'm Xiaoman Hu, and you can just call me Charlotte as well. I'm now the director of my sport community at Huawei, and also serve as a chairperson of AI and Data Foundation Outreach Committee. On top of that, I'm a Chinese Institute electronics expert, the project lead of Tiny MS, and a founder of MSG Women in Tech, which is now part of Huawei's official Women in Tech initiative. And prior to Huawei, I work as an algorithm expert and deep learning evangelist responsible for computer vision and deep learning platform projects, and from which I have gained extensive experience in artificial intelligence and open source areas.
Wonderful. Thank you so much for being here with us. And Ramin, over to you.
Yes, so my name is Ramin Khan. I'm a software engineer living in Oslo, Norway. So I specialize in cloud computing and security. I'm involved in various initiatives where I work with initiatives to increase more women in the tech industry and raise awareness about diversity for CEOs. I'm also quite concerned about diversity and sustainability, and I look really forward to be participating in this webinar.
Wonderful, thanks. And actually, let's start with you with the first question. Can you just tell us what International Women's Day means to you and why it's important for us to recognize and honor this day each year?
Sorry.
Ramin, go ahead.
Yes, well, thank you, Jamie. I think International Women's Day for me means empowering each other, each woman. And as you mentioned, like talking about the bias and talking about women empowerment, women in leadership positions and women in tech. So, and also not only talk about these women that are already in the industry, but also talk about women who wants to be a part of this industry, who wants to get education in tech, who wants to realize their dreams. So I think first and foremost, I'm participating in this webinar, not only talking about every woman that has accomplished a lot, but also all the women who want to accomplish.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think we're going to talk a little bit more later in the session about opportunities for women to build their skills, learn new skills, change careers if being in the tech industry is something that they're interested in, and how we can all kind of support opportunities for them to realize those goals. Charlotte, did you want to add something to what International Women's Day means for you?
Okay, and for me, International Women's Day is a special reminder to appreciate women's power and contribution every day. And on this day, we tell the inspirational and supportive and motivational stories about women and girls to spread their spirit and achieve our full potential. So on this day, we reflect on how far we have come and the improvements that our predecessors have pushed through, and how we can cast our baton to go further and faster towards equality. So I think it is a day to remind us to be more committed to making the necessary structural and social change to make full equality possible. And each of us has a part to play in this process, so that we can actually believe that when women support each other, that incredible things could happen. Yeah.
Thank you so much. Noah, you mentioned when you were introducing yourself that, gender equality, particularly in the industry that you work in, is something that you're really passionate about. And I think you each in different ways do work that is dedicated to making sure that there are more opportunities in tech and that those opportunities are more accessible for women. How have you seen opportunities for women come to the forefront? What in particular in your role are you seeing as far as making skills development and opportunities for growth available to women?
Yeah, I think it's a really good question, Jenny. Thanks. So I think we are all, to be honest, connecting to the previous question. I hope that in a few years' time there won't be the need of International Women's Day, right? Because we do want to equivalent that game. But acknowledging there is a gap now, we actually, on top of the things that we are doing, we also have dedicated communities that are addressing for women. In general, by the way, in Google, when we work with developers, we are a fan of communities, and I'll let you know why. And before that, I'll just briefly mention the type of communities that we have. They can address professional and inspiring professional for developers. I don't know if you know about the Google developer groups, but we actually have a dedicated community for students, and we have a dedicated community for the women tech maker. And the reason why I'm actually mentioning all of those communities, because I'm a true believer that communities can actually bring the power to encourage us all to step up, to learn, to work together, to be supported by others, even, during challenges time. And I think Ramin and Charlotte, they all mentioned there might be some challenges, on the way. But we actually want to see more women are first coming into the industry, but also staying in the industry. So how can we make sure that we are keep growing women to actually become even in senior roles, right? And from the moment they step up to start studying that in university to the moment that, we want to see more CEOs, more CTOs in the tech industry. So I think, this is one thing. Communities in general, I'm a true believer of that. The second thing is that we actually have dedicated community for women. So the women techmaker that I mentioned, or women founders, that we are really working with them to bring them to a safe place for them so they can develop a solid network, so they can really expand on their skills and knowledge and so on. I'll give you one example, if I may. So Hannah was actually she came from India, and she landed in Ireland, and she really wanted to shift her career to become a developer, an Android developer. And she already did the course and everything around that, but coming to a new country, she was a bit struggling, also lacking a bit of confidence. She started attending the GDGs, the Google Developer Group that we have actually in Dublin. And every week she started to kind of like embed herself within the community. She gained more confident. She actually found it so useful that she started stepping up and organize some of the events, like bringing speakers that she thought might be interesting for the West. She became a women techmaker ambassador. So she actually brought more female to the community and actually helped them and supported them. But then one day she really wanted to do that shift, and she got the help from the community. So through those networks, she actually was able to nail a job as an Android developer. And the surprising thing is that the company that she ended up working with, I think that what she says, the most exciting part about it, that she was proactively helping her community around that. So it's not just like we are looking for people to do great technology things, but I think the word today is also appreciate the extra mile that people are doing to make it more inclusive for others to join.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's such a great example. I think that notion of community and building your network is so important. Ramin, I don't know if that's maybe something you want to comment on, just the importance of sort of surrounding yourself with a network of people who can support you, who can mentor you, who can provide career advice. I mean, how have you built your network? What kinds of activities have you gotten involved in that have helped you to create a supportive network?
Yes, Jamie. So I think the turning point in my tech career was when I was studying, and I participated in a training program arranged by Huawei. So the training program was called Seeds for the Future. And I think that was definitely the turning point in my tech, you could say the tech line for where I was going, because then I only heard about having women CEOs and women roles in tech, but at that training program, I was able to see it. I was able to meet Huawei as a company, the employees, and all the fantastic people working there, especially women in leader positions there. And I kind of realized that, what, I think I am on a great start. I think the IT industry is something for me, because mostly on the lectures on, the studies, you were not able to see a lot of women or lecturers that was women. So I was kind of unsure, is this something for me? But to see that in reality, I think that was kind of the turning point where I kind of knew that, I think I'm comfortable in what I have chosen as my education, and I would like to follow this upon.
Yeah, and that idea of representation, I think, is so important for women to see other women doing the things that they are interested in doing and the things that they're passionate about. It's just such an important piece of the puzzle, because it can be really empowering to see women, taking on the types of roles, the types of tasks, the types of careers that you're interested in. And it's a great segue to our next question. Charlotte, I'm going to come to you, and I just want to know what advice you would give to young women who are considering pursuing studies or careers in tech, but also what opportunities exist for building those skills and experiences outside of school and the workplace. Because I think there's a lot of women who maybe didn't study in school, they didn't study computer science, they didn't study computing in school, but they're maybe now thinking that it might be the right path for them. And how can they start to build those skills and build confidence for making a career change, possibly?
Well, I think I have 3 pieces of advice to give. The first one is interest always comes first. And if you're interested in science and technology, it will be much easier for you to excel. And driven by strong devotion and motivation, you'll go far and elevate your career path more smoothly. And second is perseverance. Learning technology actually is not an easy task. You may encounter many hard problems to solve, but giving up should not be one of your options. Apply divide and conquer or any other method you see fit, and perseverance will get you to the finish line. And third is the most important is brace yourself. And good things always come to those who dare to try. So don't be shy in the workplace. Just be straightforward with your ideas and always communicate with a positive attitude to your colleagues or your leaders and your classmates or some other people. And even with your superior, bold but reasonable arguments serve you best, lead you to success. And the next is Seeds for the Future is Huawei's global initiative that aims to help nurture young talents, skill, and mindsets to better facilitate them for the workplaces and for the future. And we have already supported many female students across the globe via this program. So if anyone are interested in this program, and you can just know more via this website. I'll send this website later, or you can just search a keyword Seeds for the Future Huawei by Google. Yeah.
That's great. Thank you so much. Noah, do you want to add anything to advice for women, but also tools and resources to help them build their skills and experiences outside of the workplace or school?
Yeah, definitely. So building on what Charlotte said, few things. First of all, I kind of like already mentioned it before, but I've done it all my life. So kind of like find your network, right? Find your community. It can be a community that you learn with. It can be a network that you actually collect along the way. It can start from like your university professor, someone that will always cheer up for you and kind of like push you further. It can be your colleagues, your peers at work, your managers and colleagues and so on. And even people that are not necessarily in your circles, like who knows where it's going to come in the future. We have a saying, if you want to go quick, go along, but if you want to get farther, go together. So really go together, make sure that you have this network of people. I think the second thing I would say, especially to the technology sector, is find opportunities to practice your theory and kind of like your knowledge into real projects, right? Like, make it a reality. So don't just leave it as kind of like a theoretical knowledge. Like a nice example, okay, I mentioned earlier, we have the Google Developer Student Clubs that we are running in universities. And actually one of the, we had like a Turkey student, her name is Aisha. She actually decided to, we have actually what we call a solution challenge, where we are actually encouraging students to combat social challenges with a technology solution. And Aisha, actually from Turkey, is a great example because she gathered a group of people in her university, and together they build an app that encourage people from recycling things in their seaside. They have quite a severe issue there in the beaches of Turkey, and that's what they care about. But I think that the nice thing about it, that they managed to find a way to translate their theoretical knowledge to something that they actually worked on. They encountered challenges, right? Like they built something that usually students don't necessarily have. So it can be in Google, it can be in Huawei, it can be in any other way, right? Like you can always go out and find ways to really build real things with your knowledge. First of all, it anchors your confidence. Hey, I can really do that. Second of all, it's great to see something coming into life. And third of all, as a student, it actually gives you a way to, to show when you're after jobs or when you want to prove your qualifications, you actually have something in your hand. So, yeah. And Jamie, as per your question about resources, you can Google developer groups, and you can find the right groups that can fit you.
Amazing. There's a question from the audience that kind of ties into my next question. And my next question is really kind of around the theme for International Women's Day this year, which, as I mentioned when we started, is break the bias, really encouraging people to call out gender bias, discrimination, stereotyping. And my question is around sort of how can we all, in practical terms, start to really do that in our workplaces, in our schools, in our communities? And there's a question from the audience that I think sort of ties nicely into this. We definitely have some men in our audience today, and one of our audience members has asked, you know, being a man, what can I do to help achieve equality, to help support women? And I think when we started, I mentioned that, you know, International Women's Day is a great reminder to us all that we all have a role to play in doing this. Ramin, do you want to start, just kick us off in thinking about some ways that we can all kind of take actual practical action in our workplaces, our schools, and our communities?
Yes, definitely. I think first and foremost that we have just organized this webinar and people participating. I think one step is already checked. So congratulations to everyone that you are breaking the bias right now by participating to this webinar, by listening to us, by reflecting to everything we're saying right now. Other thing that you can do is also go to physical conferences, talk with people, network with people, having those positions in IT. And if you are a leader in your company or have like authorities in your position, talk with the women, not only talk about them, but talk with them. Talk about how they're feeling about their job, give them equal opportunities as everyone else in their work, and just make sure that you're not, even if you do not are trying to discriminate anyone, it might happen. So talk with everyone about it, and also raise your voice and tell all the employees that we are for women leadership. We do support these type of initiatives. For me, like as an employee, it is very helpful to just get this awareness from the leaders that, okay, this is something that they want to work towards in our company.
Great. Charlotte, over to you for a similar question. I mean, how do you think we can all sort of help break the bias in our everyday lives, workplaces, schools, communities? What are some things that we can all be doing?
You mean, how can we help to break the bias in our schools and community?
Yep.
Yeah, I may have three aspects to answer this question, not only just for the schools or communities. I may have a larger aspects, something like the policymakers or companies or governments, and for my individual level. Okay, so from the policymakers' perspective, and I think we need laws and regulations to end discrimination and inequality at work. The law enforcement should be in place to lead the way for the faster shift. It is the first one. And at a company's level, we need decision makers and executives to truly practice equality policies, not only for men, but for women. The company's hiring policies should always consider gender equality as a must, not a better to have option. It is both for companies and communities. And our thinking and action should improve from, should we give women flexibility during their pregnancy or for some other matters, to how we can better facilitate flexibility for women. So it is an action transition. So as for the governments, the private sector and the universities should cooperate to boost the women's participation in STEM. For example, by setting up women in STEM scholarships, and girls and women who excel in STEM and are from low-income families are given opportunities to advance in science and technology and build a career. And finally, at my individual level, and which I think we should keep increasing our visibility, voices, and setting examples. Actually, in Europe, women account for only 29% of PhD graduates in engineering, manufacturing, and construction. We represent only 25% of self-employed professionals in technical professions such as science, engineering, or information and communication technologies. So we are significantly underrepresented among inventors, with only 10% of patent applications coming from women. So just let's speak up to call for more women allies to join us. So that's my suggestion to how to help break the bias in tech or in community or in school. Yeah.
Great. Thank you so much. Yeah, Noah, please.
Thanks. So I think building on what Ramin and Charlotte mentioned, I also want to mention another aspect. when you think about it, I think many of us tend to be biased to people that are different from us, right? It occurred that in the tech industry, currently the majority are men, as you mentioned, so they tend to actually hire people who are similar to them, right? Or who think the same, have the same mindset. I think acknowledging how diversity can actually benefit all of us, right? It can be gender diversity, definitely. It can also be different type of diversity, right? But acknowledging the diversity is actually a bliss, okay? It's not a burden, it's a bliss. It enables us to better serve so many other people. It actually creates the ability to brainstorm and really surface solutions that we never thought about otherwise. I can share with you my view on how we are trying to work at Google, or like our product teams. We account that we are serving billion of people across the world, right? Both women and men. Some of them are coming from different countries or different background or different culture. So I think we are constantly trying to diverse our teams to make sure that we are also able to serve diverse audience. And I think if we all acknowledge that diversity is a bliss, and we we constantly go to get it, eventually we will help, it will help us to change our mindset. Instead of seeing that as a burden, actually, I want to have someone very different from me, so together we can do much better. And I think, to your question of the great men that actually raised this question, even acknowledging that, surrounding yourself with a diverse opinion, diverse people, diverse teams, and really preaching to have a diverse environment in the university, in the workplace, and so on, that will help us, as well as, things that Ramin and Charlotte mentioned, like, speaking up and, hosting such an event and so on. But the industry mindset needs to change.
Yeah, absolutely. I think it's such a good point too about, diversity in your teams makes your teams better. It makes your teams able to better serve the people that you are, the customers that you're serving, it makes your products better. Because you have a broader understanding of the world if your team is more representative of that landscape. So it's a great point, and thanks for raising that. There's another question from the audience that I want to bring up that just came in, and I'm actually just going to read this question because I think it's a really important one. It says, in my school, girls like myself are interested in the tech industry. We have very few opportunities, and so that also, I think, damages their confidence a bit. Do you think that creating scholarship opportunities or opportunities for women to study in tech and STEM related fields is just as important as coming up with mentorship programs? So we've talked a little bit about, programs that help you build your network and programs that help you build your skills, but perhaps if we just think a little bit earlier in the process, like how can we encourage and provide more opportunities for women to get involved in tech-related studies from an even earlier age, and what are some things that we can do to support that? Noah, I don't know if maybe you want to start with that one.
So I think it's a really good point, because I think this, bias or, the gap starts much earlier, right? And I think someone here mentioned, if I can see it, I can be it. Or you need to see it in order to aspire for that. And I I mentioned to you when I just introduced myself, and again, this is an anecdote because it's something that's really close to my heart. In Israel, for example, we set up a program scaled for a few markets of Mind the Gap. The idea there is, first of all, acknowledging the gap, but bringing, young female students to see female engineers, right? To see and be inspired that, those opportunities exist there, and also address some of the fears. I think Ramin mentioned at the beginning that actually seeing and acknowledging there are more senior female engineers or opportunities actually really encouraged her. So scholarship is definitely one of the ways, but I would even say to apply to a scholarship, you need to to wish for that. You need to be confident, that this is a path that you want to choose. And I think, really acknowledging that some schools, unfortunately, they don't have that bigger view. So first of all, I want to give you a big kudos of actually jumping on this webinar and making, proactively seeing and searching and seeking opportunities to the person who actually asked that. You're actually on the right path now, because you are doing those steps that will allow you to get a better understanding what's out there, right? Like, you know, what opportunities are awaiting for me. So definitely, you know, all of the things that we mentioned, but I think it starts and ends in knowing the opportunity is there and that you deserve it. You deserve to have this opportunity. You can step up into that. It won't be easy. It will be challenging, but to be honest, the most rewarding things in life are probably, you know, those that you need to work hard for them. I don't think that we should work harder than men. But I'm just saying, you know, the journey is not necessarily an easy one, but I'm sure and confident that someone who actually bothered to jump on this webinar can actually excel in such a journey.
Yeah, absolutely. Ramin, do you want to add something to that?
Yes, definitely. I think it's such an important question, and I can relate to that because I'm not really, like, I'm new to the IT industry. And I was definitely thinking the same, what can I do? Like, okay, I started this software engineering education, but what can I do further? And definitely, as Noah mentioned, you're coming to this webinar, you already done like first step. And the second is to raise your voice. So I remember talking to a student counselor at my university and asking her the same question, like, what can I do to be more involved in the tech industry to kind of have a broader insight after my education? And she was just like, you just need to participate. And if you see some lack of anything, tell me, we can fix that. So definitely to everyone watching and wants to kind of pursue more into the tech education, is that raise your voice and be visible and tell us, is there anything that you need to see more of? Are there any scholarships that you think that would have suited you? Are there any like programs that you want to participate on, but there is not in the industry? Tell us, and maybe we all can figure out this together. And also mentioning the difference between men and women in tech. We women does not want to come into tech only because there are a lot of men in this industry, and we just want to show from the annual reports that yes, we have this percentage in the company. Not at all. We want to participate. We know that to solve tomorrow's problems or to develop more future-oriented solutions, we need to have both men and women in the industry to develop the both parts and to have like a broader perspective and insight. So I think my goal to what I'm saying is, don't be shy and raise your voice, and also men and women. Tell us people already in the tech industry what more you want to see, what more you want to participate on, and also take contact with us also after the webinar and ask questions if you have any.
Excellent. Thank you so much. We have just a few minutes left. Time flies, and we could talk about some of these topics, I think, for hours. But I want to finish by just asking you each to, we've talked a little bit today about the importance of mentorship and networking and surrounding yourself with people who are going to support your goals and encourage you and empower you. And so I want to ask you each in a few words to just tell us about a woman who has been instrumental in your own life, someone who has supported you or mentored you, and you feel really kind of embodies the spirit of International Women's Day. Charlotte, can we begin with you on that question?
Okay. Actually, I want to say two women in my life. The first one is my mom, and she's only a general staff member in a factory, but she never took her gender as an excuse for any kind of indolence, and she always tried her very best at work, and often was regarded exemplary employee, even facing harsh competition from the opposite gender. And in addition to her pursuit of perfection, her perseverance and down-to-earth approach to problem solving are also a constant inspiration for me. And another person I want to mention is a colleague of it's a member of my team, Ivy. So Ivy is an algorithm engineer at my school. She's very smart and responsible. I remember when she took over an object detection project for wild endangered species based on the data that were captured by infrared cameras in a wild reserve in April last year. And before the takeover, she knew nothing about object detection algorithms at all. So she didn't know how to start. And also, animals move so fast, especially at night. So most images are incomplete and fuzzy, thus we can't see them clearly even by our own eyes. So looking at all those poor quality images, she did not flinch. Instead, she revised the parameters of network over and over again, and eventually the best model was trained from, 12,000 datasets with an accuracy of 95%, which is much higher than average. So as a tenacious female engineer, Ivy constantly pushes the limit for excellence. I'm really inspired by her dedication. So these women I want to mention really inspired me in my life.
Thank you so much. Ramin, over to you.
Yes, so I think I would also like to mention two people. First and foremost, I had a professor at my university. He was a lecturer in the web development course. And after 2 years, when I was writing my thesis, he was my supervisor. So like his motivation for having more women in tech and gender equality, like I never understood. I was just thinking, you're a man, why do you care so much? But he's like just motivation and the way he speaks, and he is so active besides his job, also attending conferences, talking to students and motivating them. I think it kind of shed up a light in me when I was studying that's so great, and I also want to be a part of that. And also my parents were always encouraging me to do all the things I want to, even though if there's less women doing something, and there was always encouraged that you should participate in that, you should go there, you should write this and that. So I think that having someone at your work or study, and also people at home encouraging you to follow your dreams is so important, and has also helped me the way along.
Excellent, thanks. And Noah.
So yeah, I think both Charlotte and Ramin mentioned their parents. So my mom, who has nothing to do with technology, she's a psychologist. But what actually, I'm looking at her, and I still see that she constantly tried to learn and grow herself and kind of like gain new skills and learnings, right? Even when it was like, at the beginning of the 80s, she started actually like, going to take some computer courses just to understand things, even outside of this industry, right? So constantly learning and like, reaching out for more. I'm so proud of her, by the way. By the time that she and my dad retired, they were actually earning almost the same, which is, not very usual, I would say, because she kept, learning, growing herself and pushing herself. I'd say the second person that actually really inspires me is Amanda. And Amanda Cavallaro, she's actually based in London. She's one of our Google Developer Group's leads. She leads a community of cloud developers. And what I'm mostly inspired by, that she constantly there to actually spread her knowledge, whether it's for like, hundreds or just a few of them. I'll give you an example. During the past 2 years, we all been struggling with lockdown and COVID, and, we couldn't have actually like, I don't know, like bigger events or kind of like networking things that we all wished for. So Amanda, she literally she parked herself in a coffee shop, by the time they were already open. And she messaged, she put a message for all the community and said, I know we can't meet on a broader level, but I'm going to be here at Costa at that hour. And I'm going to help you with anything that you need, or, mentoring, just drop by. So she literally we sometimes rely on some frameworks or structured ways to actually make those things accessible. But when people, they so much care about it, you can see that even during lockdown, right, they will find a way around that. So really was inspired by this passion. And as we mentioned, it's hard enough to, to pursue for our own career. So I can only appreciate those who take the extra mile to make sure that others will join that. I don't take it for granted for a minute.
Thank you so much. And I think that's a perfect note to wrap up the conversation on. It has been such a pleasure chatting with you guys. And like I said, I feel like we could continue to talk about this for so long. I want to thank you all for giving of your time, sharing your insights, your expertise, your advice. Big thanks to our audience as well for joining us today for this very important discussion. I'd also like to give a special thanks to Huawei for sponsoring today's webinar and for contributing a couple of amazing speakers for our panel. There were a few questions from the audience about more information on the Seeds for the Future program, and we'll make sure when we send the recording for today's session that we also include information about how to learn more about Seeds for the Future. We hope that today's session is just a very small part of how you all choose to honor and celebrate International Women's Day, and that we're all able to carry the spirit of International Women's Day with us every day as we look for ways to break the bias in our own communities. On behalf of everyone at Times Higher Education, thanks for joining us and happy International Women's Day.
Thank you, Jamie.
Thank you.